Welcome back now for the news in detail. We start with the French President Emmanuel Macron, who has asked India to de-escalate and resolve the dispute over occupied Kashmir. Amidst growing international pressure on New Delhi, Macron said France is concerned over regional stability after India's recent actions. Macron and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi met at the Chantilly Palace ahead of the annual G7 summit. Macron said no third party should intervene or incite violence in connection with the Kashmir issue. In a joint statement with Modi, Macron said it is for India and Pakistan to jointly resolve the matter. Macron said he would reach out to Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan to discuss the matter. Meanwhile, the White House said US President Donald Trump plans to help calm regional tensions after India's annexation of Kashmir. In a related development, UN Special rapporteurs have asked India to end its crackdown on freedom of expression in occupied Kashmir. In a statement, they expressed deep concern over the arrest of Kashmiri political figures, journalists, human rights defenders and civilians. They called India's action in the valley a collective punishment for the civilian population. The experts expressed concerns over reports of Indian forces conducting night raids on homes in occupied Kashmir. The UN Human Rights Council appointed specialists called for an investigation into Indian human rights violations in occupied Kashmir. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged the world to stamp out anti-Muslim hatred and persecution. India has further tightened its clampdown in occupied Kashmir ahead of Friday prayers, fearing protests against annexation of the valley. Imprisoned Kashmiri leaders called for a mass march towards the UN office in Srinagar against India's illegal unilateral accession of occupied Kashmir. It is the first such call since the Indian government revoked occupied Kashmir's autonomy, provoking anger in the region and beyond. Indian occupying forces have cordoned off key roads leading to the UN office and blocked virtually all streets with pickets. Data from hospitals in Kashmir showed that over 150 Kashmiris have been treated for pellet gun injuries since August 5th. Sher-e-Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences and Shri Maharaj Hari Singh Hospital say the civilians were wounded by Indian forces in the crackdown. A local government official in Jammu and Kashmir, however, says the number of injured was probably higher than the figures from the two hospitals. Moving on, the ninth round of talks between the US and the Afghan Taliban has started in Doha to finalize a peace deal. The two sides will discuss US troop withdrawals and a ceasefire between the warring sides in the country. After the eighth round, US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said excellent progress was made with the Taliban. Meanwhile, President Ashraf Ghani says the Afghan government will join the talks with the Taliban as they move to a crucial phase. However, the Taliban have repeatedly refused to hold direct talks with the government. Moving on now, North Korea has warned the US that continuing with existing sanctions would be a mistake. Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho says Pyongyang is ready for both diplomatic dialogue and escalation with Washington. Ri also accused US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo of hampering talks with North Korea. He said Pompeo is more interested in his own political ambitions than in current US foreign policy. Earlier, South Korea said the US and North Korea may soon resume denuclearization talks, but North Korea has said it has no interest in dialogue as long as the US and South Korea persist with military provocations. Now, Italy's President Sergio Mattarella has given the country's main political parties until Tuesday to form a workable coalition. He said Italy will need fresh elections if a stable government cannot be formed. Five Star Movement and Forza Italia party leaders met Mattarella to discuss the crisis of Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's resignation. Forza Italia leader Silvio Berlusconi says snap polls should be held if a new centre-right government cannot be formed. But Five Star Movement leader says he is working to form a new government and avoid elections. Five Star is in coalition talks with the centre-left Democratic Party after its alliance with the far-right League Party collapsed. Meanwhile, Russia has told G7 members to agree their positions on its reinstatement instead of making a show out of discussions. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Russia would need to examine tangible proposals before deciding whether it would rejoin the bloc. The annual G7 summit opens in France tomorrow. Britain, France and Germany have voiced reservations over bringing Russia back into the bloc. They have asked Russia to first resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Their comments follow U.S. President Donald Trump's call to readmit Russia to the G7. Opposing the idea, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said nothing has changed since Russia's removal in 2014. Russia was expelled from the erstwhile G8 when it annexed the Ukrainian territory of Crimea 5 years ago. Now, France says the record number of lasers burning in the Amazon rainforest is an international crisis that should be the top of the agenda at the G7 summit. Amid growing criticism, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro admitted farmers could have started the fires, but he told foreign powers not to interfere, calling Macron's remarks a misplaced colonialist mindset. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has also expressed deep concern over the Amazon fires. In a tweet, he said the world cannot afford more damage to the world's largest source of oxygen and biodiversity. Data from the National Institute for Space Research reveals an 85% increase in fires across Brazil this year, most of them in the Amazon region. A thunderstorm has killed 5 people and injured 22 others in Poland's Tatra Mountains. Local media says lightning hit a group of tourists on the peak of Gierwont, a popular mountain in the Tatra range. Rescuers say at least a dozen people were hit by lightning in the area. Meanwhile, a rockfall slowed down an ongoing rescue operation for 2 cavers trapped in the Tatra Mountains. The 2 cavers have been trapped in the Wielka Sniezna cave since August 17th. United Nations investigators have said violence perpetrated against Rohingya women and girls by Myanmar's troops showed genocidal intent. This comes as talks on the repatriation of Rohingyas in Bangladesh stalled after refugees refused to return to Myanmar voluntarily. UN investigators have accused Myanmar's government of failing to hold anyone accountable for the ethnic cleansing of Rohingyas in 2017. The Myanmar military's atrocities forced 730,000 Rohingyas to seek refuge in neighboring Bangladesh. Investigators say they have collected raw data on alleged perpetrators. Their names were added to a list to be shared with UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet.
What is important for us in this report is that the men are separated from the women. The women are then were taken to a house. In this house, they were gang raped in a situation of sexual slavery for days, and later they burnt the house down.
Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh say they will only return home if they are given full citizenship rights and their safety is guaranteed. Moving on to Somalia, with both rival candidates have claimed victory in a tense and closely watched regional election in the semi-autonomous Jubaland. The federal government in Mogadishu does not recognize the polls. The election in Jubaland was postponed several times because of a power struggle between Mogadishu and the regional government. President Ahmed Madobe has claimed victory as leader of the semi-autonomous region. The state parliamentary speaker says Madobe won with 56 of Jubaland's 74 MPs casting ballots. Madobe's rivals held a parallel vote, declaring their candidate Abdul Rashid Haidig the winner. According to analysts, Kenya is backing Madobe while Ethiopia is siding with Mogadishu in trying to remove him. Indonesia Prime Minister Yusuf Shahid has temporarily delegated powers to Ministers of Public Service Kamal Morjani to focus on the presidential race. Shahid says the move will give a level playing field to all candidates and ensure the transparency of the presidential election. Along with Shahid, the Defence Minister Abdul Karim Zabedi is also vying for the top job. The election campaign will run from September 1st to 13th and voting on September 15th. It has been 3 years since the longest-running civil war of modern times ended in Colombia. But the war's legacy still continues to poison the lives of people across the country. This report focuses on just one aspect.
Someone is threatening Joanna Sainz. They use letters and messages on social media app WhatsApp. They come from a group called the Black Eagles. She's terrified because 10 years ago she was actually attacked.
They take me to a vacant lot. They beat me. They tell me I'm nosy. They insult me. They rape me.
They threaten people who campaign to make a difference. People like Christiane Robayo.
The fear generated by these types of threats is multiple for families, emotionally and psychologically. The social leader has to hide. He has to change housing. He needs to find new path and lose his social bond.
Colombia is still emerging from the longest civil war in modern history. The Black Eagles were an umbrella for 800 right-wing groups. When the war ended in 2016, they went quiet. No one has been captured. No one has been prosecuted. Nobody knows who they are. They could be a facade to hide politicians, paramilitaries, and individuals who just want to intimidate. But their terror has spread across the country, enough to make tackling them a government priority. And it is spread with chilling simplicity.
This is what we call a pamphlet. This pamphlet is handed over to a lot of social leaders. It is slid under doors in villages, and in this way, for the most part, the threats of the Black Eagles are distributed.
This is the legacy of the war and the chaos it created. People like Joanna Sainz will be left to cope with it for the foreseeable future.
Coming up next in the bulletin after a short break is... Tel Aviv's coastline is the third most polluted by plastic waste. Virtual reality tour window into Germany's past. The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is a major challenge to the country. An important resource in fighting the disease is the water of Lake Kivu. Getting it to the people that live there can be a problem, as we see in this report.
The golden rule to avoid the spread of Ebola is to wash your hands regularly. But for that, you need water. In Goma, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, water is essential in the fight against the virus spreading across the region. Facing shortages, Ebola response teams have had to rely on the generosity of Lake Kivu to supply health checkpoints.
The lake is crucial because it helps vulnerable people, poor people, and it helps in the fight against Ebola. When water is abundant, we can help prevent the spread of the disease.
Finding water in Goma is difficult. The city's water distribution network is outdated and only supplies a few neighborhoods. For many of Goma's inhabitants, access to water means pumping it directly from the lake.
The water problem in Goma clearly shows that only this part of the city is supplied, not the whole city. That's why a lot of people come to the lake to get their water. They also then carry some home for those who need it.
On a daily basis, entrepreneurial water suppliers organize several trips. The lake water is treated with chlorine and then distributed to reservoirs in the region. Water towers like these require 5,000 liters of water per day.
If the lake wasn't there, it would be catastrophic. Maybe the response teams would get water from elsewhere, maybe in Rwanda, in Sake, but it would be catastrophic. We would not even survive. We wouldn't survive because the lake is our only source of drinking water.
Lake Kivu is an essential force in stopping the spread of Ebola and an invaluable resource for the local population. For the people that live on its shores, the waters of Kivu give, shape, and preserve life.
Yusuf Salman and his team pick up plastic debris left by bathers or casa by the sea in the early morning. A June report by the Worldwide Fund for Nature ranked Tel Aviv's coastline as the third most polluted by plastic waste in the Mediterranean. This report has more.
The Jewish Koralik blames Israel's passion for plastic on a lack of education and on deeply ingrained habits, such as using disposable tableware for family picnics. Observant Jews who want a beachfront lunch on Saturdays are forbidden from washing the dishes afterwards. This is because their faith bans them from working on the Sabbath. Despite the activities of environmental groups, Israel remains hooked on plastic. Working in heat and humidity with large rakes, they scoop plastic cups, cigarette ends, empty sunscreen tubes, and soiled babies' nappies.
I think Israeli people are very dirty. I think they're not aware and they haven't been educated enough about how to take care of their environment. I just came from spending 3 summers in Europe, and the behavior of people towards trash is completely and absolutely different.
In 2005, Israel's Environmental Protection Ministry launched a program offering local councils incentives for proven results in cleaning their beaches. Subject to regular inspection, councils meeting these requirements get extra funding. Head of the Environment Ministry's Marine Division, Ran Amir, says failing authorities face cuts or even court trials. Amir cites the case of the popular Palmahim beach south of Tel Aviv. Palmahim Municipal Council was taken to court and fined over the condition of their beach.
We give them, the school children, lectures about how to protect the environment. We educate them that the sea and the beach starts right next to their house in drainage canals. Once someone throws a bottle cap or a plastic bag, it ends up in the drainage canals and then reaches the sea.
With 4 million inhabitants, Tel Aviv is Israel's most populous metropolitan area.
Well, have you ever wondered how your city came to be as it is now? What people saw on the same streets you walk through? This report shows Berlin's time ride into how things used to be in Germany's past using virtual reality.
Time Ride is an attempt to time travel, tracing how the glimmering city of Berlin came to be as it is now. The company was founded at the end of 2016 by Jonas Roth in Munich. The exhibition is based in 4 cities: Munich, Berlin, Cologne, and Dresden. As part of a guided exhibition, visitors can journey back in time to a historical period characterizing the city.
A lot of historical material have been collected, video material, images, and on the basis of this material, each house, there are more than 500 houses in high resolution and some in the background, is then remodeled because the images are always in 2D and we need a 3D image to get this spatial effect.
In Cologne, city life is revived at the beginning of the 20th century. Dresden awakes to the splendor of 1719 during the reign of August the Strong. The guests can take a seat in Cologne tram or a Baroque carriage, each according to the time and place. Other cities and epochs are already being planned.
They're different documents. There are of course many archives in Berlin and also many archival documents online. Everything was assembled, and that's how new houses and buildings were recreated.
Time Ride is a collaborative effort between artists, designers, historians, and curators. It also won the German Tourism Award in 2018.
German carmaker Volkswagen says it is not interested in acquiring a share in American automaker Tesla. The Volkswagen spokesman comments come after a German magazine said the company's CEO regularly meets the Tesla chief. The magazine said the German firm is interested in the US carmaker's expertise in software and battery cell design. Tesla has so far rebuffed Volkswagen's efforts at striking an alliance. Asian stock markets are treading water over uncertainty about the extent of further US interest rate cuts. With the trade war between US and China dragging on, Asian investors are focused on a speech by Federal Reserve Bank Chair Jeremy Powell later today. The Shanghai Composite and Hong Kong's Hang Seng have gained 0.5%. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index is also up a fraction. Seoul's Kospi index is marginally down. Now let's have a look at the weather update across the world. Well, that's all for now. For more news and updates, stay tuned with Indus News.